Okay, greetings everyone. This is Cassandra Faye Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates. I am the founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence, and I am going to do a couple of things today, read a couple of things today. I don't know how long this is going to be, and I'll be honest, I didn't, I was going to, but I've been listening a lot to a lot of opinions and videos listed below South Korea's 4B movement. And maybe later I will be a little bit more methodical. Maybe in the future, I'll be a little bit more methodical about the collection of information or whatever. But I did want to go ahead and just put at least the beginnings of my opinions about this thing, since it's hot on the lips of everyone, and give my on what has been unfolding in South Korea since about 2016 with what is now being called the 4B movement. Yeah. So, you know what? Yeah. Anyway, so again, my name is Cassandra Faye Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates. That is my YouTube channel. That's my YouTube handle. If you're not tuning in from YouTube, Daughter of the Fates. And I want to talk about this thing today. Yeah. So this thing known as the 4B movement. If you put in the search engine of TikTok 4B movement today, you will see hundreds, if not thousands, of videos talking about this movement, its implications, and all of the other not so intelligent narrative that is unfolding around the 4B movement. And I will let you do that. I'm not going to attempt to rehash the differings of opinions about the 4B movement and the way that discussion is happening. The majority of people having an opinion, expressing an opinion about the 4B movement, are in the West, primarily in the United States of America. I have seen and I have found several Asian, primarily women, making statements about the 4B movement, and all of those women have been what we would call patriarchal women, attempting to invalidate the movement by reducing the participants in the movement to being radical feminists. Apparently, the history of the state level, greetings to Tajali, my bad. The idea of being LGBTQIA or quote feminist in South Korea is something that is of much more dire consequence than here in the United States. Here in the United States, we have a relative amount of liberty to move about the cabin relatively. That's changing radically, but for right now, you can still be quote out without serious harm to your life. That's not the case in South Korea. Especially for women who identify as part of the LGBTQIA community, right? So anyway, there's so many angles and so many dynamics, but I want to keep this streamlined and simple, and then I want to contribute my opinion and the position that I have from the perspective that I haven't heard this particular approach to this question. Okay. All right. So for those of you who do not know, somehow you've been living under a rock or a pebble or a stone or something, the 4B movement is a movement that began in 2016, but really began to take off in 2019. The reason that it is becoming something that is more popularized is because there have been several articles discussing the fact that this year, when at the beginning of the school year, when these kindergartens were supposed to be full, I think it was 15,000 children. Greetings, voiceover by Stephanie Marie. That when the school year began, there were approximately 5,000 empty kindergarten classrooms, which is approximately 15,000 kindergartners that were not in a classroom, meaning 15,000 kindergartners that had not been born, that had not been born. And so there are several different sources that are citing different contributing factors for why this has happened. But as a consequence, now some people are saying it's because of the 4B movement. Some people are saying it's just because it has become so impossibly expensive to afford to get married or have children that this is the issue. Regardless, for the first time, their classroom, 5,000 kindergarten classrooms, or approximately 15,000 would-be kindergartners had not been born, officially making South Korea, catapulting South Korea's birth rate to the lowest on earth officially at 0.78 births, right? So that happened this year. This year, officially, South Korea had the lowest birth rate on earth, okay? Now, of course, this is creating a crisis for the state, for the government of South Korea, because every country wants to be able to ensure a relative equilibrium between its society's death rate and its society's birth rate, so that you always have enough young people who potentially become workers in the general economy. Okay. Now, the reason this movement is called the 4B movement is because of the things that women are boycotting. They begin with B, or I guess the Korean word for no begins with a B, and so the 4 no B, or the four B's are no heterosexual sex, no heterosexual marriage, no childbearing, and no heterosexual dating. Okay, those are the 4 B's. No heterosexual dating, no heterosexual sex, no children, no childbearing, and no marriage. Now, there are, when you go to watch these multiplicity of videos about the 4B movement, the thing that made me decide that I was actually going to address it, because I've been hearing about it for some time, the thing that finally made me decide that I was going to address it is because in every single thing that I am hearing, whether it's from progressives, whether it's from feminists, whether it's from woman haters, doesn't matter. Every single solitary video that I have watched, and there have been many, everything becomes the issue but the issue. Everything becomes the issue but the issue. And I am convinced, as I mostly always am, that the state is behind why the narrative is decentering the issue. You understand what I'm saying? And if you don't, let me clarify. When these women, in my understanding, when these women kicked off the 4B movement, their cited position was that, bitch, we want justice. That's it. That's simple. We want justice. That's all. That's it. They're like, look, marriage in South Korea with these antiquated mores, that make childbearing a thankless goddamn occupation, that make it so that in order to have children, you have to be tied to a male, otherwise you will starve. The violence against women once they become married. You understand? I think I read somewhere today that 50% of murders of women in South Korea happen in their home, happen at home. 51% happen at home, happen in marriages, right? And so they're like, look, we can't get no justice. You feel me? Another thing that apparently is a huge growing problem is what they call non-consensual pornography in South Korea, where there is a massive increase of hotels, public places, public bathrooms that will go and install cameras to take pictures and video of women's vaginas and stuff while they're using the bathroom or while they're getting dressed in a hotel room. And they call it unconsensual pornography. And the state actually had to create laws against it. It was so freaking prevalent in the goddamn society. Yeah. I read another statistic that said 82% of all murders in South Korea, the victims, 82% of the victims of murder in fucking South Korea are women. 82%. 82%. Okay, here's some other statistics that gave rise to why these women say we want justice. South Korea has the widest pay gap of among all developed nations. Among all developed nations, South Korea has the widest pay gap, gender pay gap. 31%. 31% is the pay gap from male to female in South Korea. Feel me? According to The Economist in 2023, South Korea has the worst working environments for women among the top 29 advanced nations on earth. The top 29 advanced economies on earth. The worst working conditions for women. There was just some big movement because this woman had started dating a co-worker, and when she told him it wasn't going to work out, this motherfucker killed her, stalked her first, and she kept saying, this dude is stalking me. And nobody took it. She went to bosses, she went to the police, nobody did anything, and he killed her. He murdered her. That's what he did. Right? And so when I opened by saying that every single video I had seen about this movement, even with so-called progressive, like feminist women, like this one woman started her video and I understood the energy and the enthusiasm for her video. But the first thing that she said, and a lot of these people are saying, which is not the issue at all, at 0% the issue. This woman opens her piece by saying, women in South Korea have decided that they would rather go extinct than to marry men. That's the conclusion you came to? That becomes the thing you start your statement with, is women have decided that they would rather go extinct than to have sex with men or to have babies? I was like, God, what a gross misinterpretation of what it is these women were demanding in the first place. The women were not talking about going extinct. The women probably, most likely, were not even talking about becoming lesbians. The women probably were not talking about being celibate forever. They were saying that if the only bargaining chip that we have to get fucking justice for these gruesome atrocities happening against us is to cut y'all the fuck off, to the degree that we will not even have babies. We will not even have children. That's what they're saying. This is not about extinction. This is not about fucking babies. This is not about babies. This is not about, the discussion is not about babies at all. The discussion is not about wanting to be lesbian or not be lesbian, or to be straight or to not be straight. None of these is the issue. The reason that this shit kicked off is because women in South Korea are fucking suffering under an extraordinarily gruesome set of circumstances, and this is their last resort. Like, look, we want justice. This is what justice means for us. This is what justice looks like for us. And if we cannot get it, we will shut down the fucking baby making factory that y'all say y'all rely on so much, but we do not benefit from at all. We do not benefit from having children. How do we benefit from having children? We don't benefit from having children. Not under those circumstances. A 31% pay gap, the worst among all developed nations. The worst working conditions for women on top of a 31% pay gap. Where is there an incentive for me to sacrifice my body to motherhood, to sacrifice my sanity, my time, and my happiness to motherhood when y'all don't even have an economic incentive, a safety incentive in it for me? So they're like, fuck it, we'll just check the fuck out. We'll grow old buying houses together and living up in houses with our roommates and shit. Because y'all obviously cannot hear. One of the videos that I saw, because this thing really kicked off, it started in 2016, but it really gained speed in 2019. But as opposed to hearing what women have to say about their lived experience in the country, that's not even a possibility, right? Instead of listening to what women are saying about what they need to be fucking sane human beings in the society, no, what men have done, the crimes against women have increased since this movement kicked off. The crimes against women have increased since this movement kicked off. They're like, well, goddamn, always saying, especially for y'all who say y'all want to marry us, especially y'all who say y'all want to have children with us, especially y'all who are our uncles, our daddies, our brothers. It seemed to me like y'all would be the main ones helping to champion this movement to force our government to create these safety nets for us. Nah, but y'all jump right on board with patriarchy and then do what? Turn around and increase the suffering of your sisters, your mothers, your aunties, your children, your girl children. The increase in violence against women has ballooned out of control in South Korea. You understand? So over here, because we tend to be stupid as shit. I ain't even gonna sugarcoat the shit. We tend to be dumb as fuck. Some of the videos that I'm watching coming out of the map. Some of the videos I watched coming out of the mouths of Black folks, male and female, talking about this movement. Child, had me shame. Like, Lord, why it's gotta be Black people? Like, why it's gotta be us saying dumbass shit? And then having the audacity to put that shit on a motherfucking video that everybody see. Why us? Goddamn. Some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. You understand? Meanwhile, this idea of a sex strike, because that's essentially what it is, right, is not new motif. The thing that sets the 4B movement apart from every other sex strike that has happened in the history of this world is the internet. It is social media. It is access to one another. So now we can hear and we can find out very quickly what's happening on the other side of the planet. Why are these women striking? Why are they saying they don't want no kids? They don't want to get married or whatever. Both things that I mentioned at the beginning are important. I've heard a lot of women, Korean women, talk about how it is damn near impossible to envision having a child that has some kind of healthy life when it requires both parents working full time to even begin to attempt to afford raising a child in South Korea? That the cost of living has skyrocketed over the last 10 years, and people cannot afford, male and female, saying we can't afford to get married. We can't be talking about trying to have no kids. We can't be talking about trying to have no kids when it takes, one woman said it takes 70% of your income just to secure an apartment in South Korea. 70% of your income, y'all. Yo, people are like, we can't have no kids. Yeah, I've heard people say, yeah, we would like to have kids, but that's an impossibility if we gonna stay in South Korea. With that, we can't do that. Not on what we make. Plus, in addition to the 31% pay, the 31% gender pay gap between male and female in South Korea, women like, we can't do that. We can't do that, right? So that's one angle that I wanted to talk about, was how everything becomes the issue, but the issue is not children. The issue is not the birth rate. The issue is not any of that. The issue that is in the center and should remain in the center of this discussion is the lived conditions of the women in South Korea. That's it. That's all. The women are the issue. The women and their demands are the center. That's all. Everything else may be a side effect of this decision that they've made. But the issue is them. The issue is how they are experiencing life in a homeland. Imagine, like the native people of the Western Hemisphere. Imagine being on your land of origin. Imagine being in a country that essentially you love because it's your land of origin. All your ancestors there. And to be completely uncomfortable all the time because of the ever-looming threat to your fucking life that exists everywhere in the goddamn country. That you can never even imagine being safe in the land of your origin. That's their experience. And they've gotten to a point where they're like, well, damn, what options do we have? What options? Tell us what the options are. Because our government is with that bullshit. Because their government is with that bullshit. Our government is with that bullshit. You understand? And we can't get justice when we go through the working mechanisms, the police, the state, the courts, the juries. There are no harsh punishments towards men of crimes against women in South Korea. Child. And so that's one angle. And I would encourage people, even as you begin to watch these videos, and I would encourage you to watch these videos about what's happening in South Korea. Keep the women in the center. Keep the women in the center. The issue is not extinction, which drives me to my next issue. How the fuck, when a woman who is a self-proclaimed feminist starts her analysis of the 4B movement by saying these women have decided they would rather go extinct than to deal with men anymore. How so foolishly naive, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, child. Really? That's the conclusion that you came to? I ain't heard now one of them women. I ain't heard a single Korean woman say we'd rather go extinct than to fuck with men. I've never heard that. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard it as assessment yet. I haven't. And unless the mother wills it so, extinction is not within the realm. Extinction is not even within the realm of discussion. As long as women remain, humans remain. And y'all conveniently forget that shit. And I'm talking about as a scientist. I'm talking about as basic fucking biology. I'm talking about basic biology. I'm talking about middle school. You know what I'm saying? 8th grade, 9th grade biology. As long as females remain, humans remain. That's not the issue. And to center, and I want you to hear how I'm phrasing this. To center children, to center the birth rate, the birthing of new humans, to center children is low key to center males. Do you understand what I'm saying? When you hear both men and women talking about the family and the family unit and who doesn't want to have babies, you are centering men. You're not centering babies. You don't give a fuck about babies. You are using babies to make an argument in defense of proximity to maleness. That's what you're doing. Even if that ain't your intention, because your feeble little brain, you feel me, probably ain't even thinking that deep. What you're doing is you are centering males through this proximity of babies, because in your mind, the only way you can have a baby is to be in proximity to a male. One. Two, to say something as a feminist, like we'd rather go extinct than to deal with men. We would rather go. That's the options. That's the options. Is extinction or sex with men? Like you don't have no understand. Like I know you went to school. I know you went to high school. You don't have no understanding of basic biology. Just none. Just none. Listen, the whole question, I've talked about this. The whole question of the birth rate, the whole question of governments, of the state, and of billionaires urging people to have babies, urging people to pick up the birth rate, because the birth rate is actually decreasing the globe over. Every nation on, or every developed nation on earth is experiencing a reduction, a decrease in its birth rate. And so now all of a sudden, what in the narrative just a hot second ago? Overpopulation, niggas making too many babies, brown people making too many. Wasn't that discussion just a half a second ago? Just a couple of years ago, wasn't overpopulation the discussion on the lips of the elite? Wasn't it? Yeah. So how all of a sudden they have shifted into this discussion about the crisis of the decreasing birth rate in every developed nation, incentives throughout all of these developed nations, except of course the United States, but especially European nations, these incentives to corral white women into having more babies, right? The birth rate will give you 2 years maternity leave, and then once you go back to work, we'll let your husband take 1 year paternity leave, and all of these incentives to the European world to increase the birth rate. That was the narrative, right? But now this discussion about the overall decrease in the birth rate is on the lips of every billionaire in particular. Elon Musk talking about the crisis of the descending or the decreasing birth rate and what it means. Child, shut the entire fuck up. I do not and am not interested in hearing any government official, any freaking religious leader, or any motherfucking billionaire talking about the crisis of the lowering birth rate. You motherfuckers are all linked in your connection to the oppression and exploitation of others. And what you're saying in code is that there are not going to be enough workers working for free or damn near free to continue to support our life. That's what you're talking about. So I say right the fuck on to any nation that says, yep, man and women, men need to be making the same goddamn argument instead of trying to impose their goddamn will on women's bodies and trap them and force them into having children that they don't want to support and a woman can't support by herself because the wage gap does not allow her. Men have just as much responsibility to be championing the issues of women as women do, and others do. But at the end of the day, there are over 8 billion people on the planet. So when these motherfuckers are talking about a decrease in the goddamn birth rate, and oh my God, the crisis, and even South Korea is feeling the shit. It's got officially the lowest birth rate on earth now at 0.7%. 15,000 would-be children that was supposed to fill up them 5,000 kindergarten rooms, unborn. You understand? This is 4 years that this has happened. Now imagine if these women keep this going. They say, listen, we done made the demands clear. Y'all try to complicate it and call it everything, but what the fuck it is, that's cool. We can hold out as long as y'all motherfuckers can hold out. And we done made our demands clear. We need equal pay. We need equal rights. We need equal protection under the goddamn law. If we say some motherfucker is stalking us, we need the police to come down on their asses like a lead goddamn bomb. For anybody that harms, hurts, spies on videos without her consent, some woman, they need to go to jail. Now, this is what we want. We want safety. We want incentives if we are going to have children. Well, now, what the government has done in response to this quote crisis, the birth rate crisis in South Korea, is they have started. It's not an incentive, though. This is what's insidious. It's not an incentive. They're attempting a payoff. What they're doing is saying, look, if you bitches agree to have babies, we ain't even gonna make y'all get married. You know, for every baby you have, we'll give you $75,000. We'll give you seven. Just have a baby. You feel me? And the women have dug their heels in and said, that ain't what we asked for. That ain't what we asked for. I heard this article. I heard this content creator the other day saying they're like, ain't nobody taking the offer. Ain't nobody taking the offer. And it's like, nah, that ain't what the fuck we asked for. We ain't asked for a payoff, bitch. We said we want rights. We want to be equal human beings in the goddamn society. That's what we want. Now, and this is what that means very clearly. If you can't comply to that, we can still do what we doing. We chilling. You understand? Articles for the last 4 or 5 years of young women, 22, 25, 26 years old, saying, look, buying houses together, 7, 8, 10, 12 women saying, look, we can afford a house together. You feel me? We'll keep the house. You feel me? We'll live in the house together. And if we end up growing old together, then that's all right. We'll have each other to take care of each other if we grow old and unmarried up in this bitch. Baby, they are invested in this movement. And that's what nobody is talking about. People trying to demote it. Oh, it's just a fringe group of women, maybe 400 people. Then there are other articles that saying there's an estimate of about 50,000 women who have made the goddamn pact with one another to not betray the movement until their demands is met. So whether it's 400 or 50,000, the claim is legitimate. So you have other groups of women, because they always want to parade women out in front of this dumbass shit to be the parrots of men, to be the parrots of patriarchy. And so these women are like, most women in South Korea are very traditional women. We want babies. We want marriage. We want children. We want a family. We want a very traditional family. This is not the norm in South Korea. It's just a few crazy bitches who are just mad, right? That's been happening a lot, where they will take, women. We talked about this a lot in Pure Lust, how, women begin in their connection. They see themselves so linked to patriarchy. To patriarchy that, see themselves so linked to patriarchy, so connected, so invested in their image through the lens of patriarchy, that they would become they would participate in horizontal violence against other women. Well, that's happening a lot, right? Just like here, every time you look around, they parading some Negro woman out to be the mouthpiece for patriarchal, colonizing, imperial ambitions. You feel me? So there ain't no shortage of sellouts. Don't let that distract you from what is happening on the ground in South Korea. You feel me? Them women are invested. They are invested. They like, look, fine, we'll be the old lonely cat lady. That's all right. We still ain't giving you what the fuck you want. That's all right. That's all right. You understand? And so the shit is exciting. It's exciting. And we should be, not only, because that's the other thing, man. Y'all know me. I'm always talking about the importance of allyship, the importance of really holding up the struggles of other people, right? That's where strength comes from. And I've seen a lot of people, talk about how we need a 4B movement in America and all of this kind of stuff. But I haven't heard a lot of like serious solidarity statements. We support every demand the women of South Korea are making for life, for safety, and for sanity for themselves. We support every action that they are taking in pursuit of that. That's a different kind of statement. Oh, we need that over here. We need a 4B movement over here. No, We can make a decision about what we need over here, but the first thing we need to be saying is we support the goddamn struggles of every woman on earth attempting to create for herself an environment, a world where her life is not constantly in jeopardy. Whether it's medically in jeopardy, whether it's physically in jeopardy, whether it's the exploitation through the institution called marriage that has her a fucking slave, literally working for free, working for food and shelter. We have to say that with the same kind of oomph and the same kind of conviction and the same kind of enthusiasm that we say free Palestine. We have to say we support the goddamn everything that Korean women have said for themselves needs to happen in order for them to fully participate in society in a way that grows the population. Not until we get what the fuck we want. Not until we get what the fuck we want. And they ain't even asking for a lot if you have me tell it. If you have me tell it, what they asking for is the bare goddamn minimum. Now, that's going to lead me into my third issue with how this movement is being expressed, talked about. I've watched, I'm telling you, hours of these videos on the 4B movement, and I've only seen one person cover the history of South Korea and the impact that is presenting itself today as the 4B movement. Because a phenomenon that you witness always has a million plus historical contributing factors that gave rise to its emergence as you're witnessing it in real time. Every single solitary event, everything has a historical context. And if you don't know the history, if you don't understand the historical context, you'll stay coming to the same dumbass conclusions that I hear a lot of people coming to about this movement. I mean, sickening dumb shit. Y'all, I'm like, oh my God, my head hurts from stupid. Oof. My head hurts from stupid. You have to understand history. You have to understand how history exists forever. It's not some, oh, that happened a long time ago and it's stuck in time. History is ever present, and everything that we witness as an event or an occurrence or any kind of phenomenon in present time has a whole undisrupted lineage in history that helped it to emerge that way. And this has a history, baby. This thing happening in South Korea has a history that is wicked and violent and horribly fucking ugly. Horribly gruesome. And I've only heard one commentator in hours of 2 and 3 minute TikTok videos who attempted to address at least some aspect of the history and why we've come to this point where women in South Korea are saying is enough is enough. And it was a Korean man who talked about the history of female infanticide in South Korea. And when we hear the word female infanticide, typically there are two bigs that we think of right off jump, which is China and India, with a world-renowned history of female infanticide. But South Korea, too, has a history of female infanticide. And what his position was that the government was to blame for where South Korea is right now, leading to these women having to make these kind of demands. And he went through the history of government, because he also said that that while these two things, the 4B movement and the expensive cost of living in South Korea may, yes, be a contributing factor to the decrease in the birth rate in South Korea. He said it's not the only thing. He talked about, he said the government is responsible. The government has to take responsibility for why the birth rate is what it is. He said because there's a long history of government programs that that went from one extreme to another, whether it was at a certain point in history, and I didn't write down all the stats or whatever, but whether it was a certain point in history encouraging Korean people to have more kids, have as many kids as you can, like whole campaigns, like, whole billboard and television campaigns encouraging South Korean people to have 3, 4, 6 kids, right? And then when the population was ballooning, then the government pivoted to the other extreme, which was, having little children, having at least one child. Well, when one child became the desirable thing, because in Asian culture still male children are preferred over female children, that is when, and the government helped with this. That's when the government started saying, because what was going to happen, what was happening at one point, I think in the 80s or the 90s, he was saying that once they started having to pivot to adjust for all of these kids, because what was happening, even though the government was saying we want you to have less children, what was happening was the people of South Korea would not stop having children until they had a boy. So say a South Korean couple had 2 girls. They were like, we obviously can't stop having babies because we need to have a boy, right? And so what the government started doing was offering free abortions and free, like, what do you call it? Where you can, once you determine the sex of the child, like once you get the ultrasound and you determine that the child is a female, you could have an abortion and the government would pay for it, because they knew you wasn't going to stop having babies until you had a boy. So if you want to have an abortion after you find out in your second trimester that you got a female child, then we'll pay for the abortion. That happened. I'm sitting here listening to this shit like, oh my God. And so that's what was happening. This went on for a couple of decades, where the government was not only paying for, but incentivizing people to have abortions to keep the population under control. If, let's see, let me read some of y'all comments. I'll see if I can find the TikTok. I've been watching like 1,000 goddamn TikToks over the last few days about this guy. I'm going to try to find that one anyway, because again, he was the only one that even began to talk about the long history of South Korea and how they've come to this, instead of like trying to reduce it to, okay, it's the high cost of living, or it's these women who decided they ain't having sex with men, and that's the reason that the population looked the way it looks. He said that the government has always attempted to manipulate the population based on its needs at any given time. Didn't Barbara Moore talk about that in The Great Cosmic Mother? How these corporations like Mattel Company and all of these mega corporations will actually go to government heads and tell them, okay, we need more or less workers and this, and then they would create whole programs, countrywide programs, to either incentivize pregnancy or incentivize sterilization based on the corporate dollar needs of the goddamn population that was being targeted, typically poor and indigenous populations throughout Southeast Asia and such, right? So let's see. Let me see some of these comments. Let's see. I want Justice voiceover until then nothing will go right anyways. Yes, absolutely. I agree with. Okay. La, 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 la. I want more than justice according to women's rights. This man's world and economic system has to go. The earth, humanity won't survive it. They demonize and villainize women all the time, and it seems family as we know it is always choosing men in the man's world over children. Okay, the meek shall one day. My hat's off to Korean women. Stand strong, ladies. That's right. That's right. I thought only China did that with the female children. No, Nini, KM, no. Because China is not the only country that has a deep, ugly, foul history of female infanticide. India does too. But I did not know that about South Korea. That was shocking, right? Yeah. So anyway, so that's what he was saying. He was like, there would be these fluctuations in the campaigns led by the government based on their economic bottom line. Because listen, I'm always telling y'all, fuck what you heard. Fuck what you heard. Fuck what you think you know. We have to simplify this shit. Human beings that live within the context of a patriarchal society, and now that patriarchy manifesting itself as a corporatocracy, as a global corporation, we are all commodities in that system. Until that system is fucking eradicated, we're all commodities. So everything that they try to color as some kind of moral issue about the lives of the unborn, they looking at dollars and cents. For every child that a woman decides not to have, that's dollars and cents they lose. There's a price tag. There is a value. There is an energetic value placed on the life of every human being that's born on the planet Earth. This is their relationship to us. We are commodities in a global goddamn fucking machine, in a fucking global corporation. And so every time the narrative changes from one extreme to another around the question of reproduction, which is what they always tried to control, is women's bodies and their ability to reproduce wealth. That's what we're reproducing. We're reproducing wealth. When we have children, we are reproducing wealth. We are reproducing a guaranteed prison population. That's what we're doing. I've done research papers on this very topic, medical research papers where they can predict the prison population based on the food fed to children between the ages of 0 and 8. They can predict the prison population. So don't you know they do that? If they have statistics from the 1970s, if they have research papers done from the 1970s that say all we have to do is feed kids certain kinds of foods and remove the nutrients that will help cognitive development in early years to predict and guarantee a prison population, don't you know they do that? Don't you know they do that? So every time, depending upon what they're monitoring and what country they're monitoring, and they're saying, okay, this is going to be a prison population here. The majority of these motherfuckers going to work in these like rebel camps and these rebel organizations that keep women and children oppressed in places like Africa, right? A certain percentage of these motherfuckers is going to go to work for the state. A certain percentage of these motherfuckers are going to be working in factories for next to nothing. We are commodities in this bitch right here. We may be higher value commodities depending upon where we were born and where we rest on the social economic scale. If we born Black in the West, we may be higher up on the socioeconomic we may have more value in the economic system than a brother or sister born in Africa, but we all commodities. God damn it. And so what happens is, let's see, Handmaid's Tale may be coming. I thought this was only a movie. Child, please. Fuck the Handmaid's Tale. Handmaid's Tale is a movie about a bunch of white women finally experiencing what the fuck the rest of us done been experiencing. The Handmaid's Tale. Because the only way white people can relate to anybody else's suffering is when they can see themselves suffering like somebody else already has. Nah, we don't need that. Ain't no Handmaid's Tale. Black women, brown women, red women, yellow women been suffering from the inception, from the beginning of goddamn the birth of patriarchy. We don't need white women to tell us how bad the future can be when we've been living right now, today, what they think the future is inevitable for them. Anyway, so we commodities. And if we can keep that in the center, if we can keep that thinking when we're witnessing whatever narrative is happening in current news or popular news issues, that, okay, what does this mean in terms of my ability to live a sovereign life? What this news that I'm hearing right now, how does this impede or deepen my suffering? What does this mean in terms of the total picture for human beings on earth and our ability to challenge the state for sovereignty? Because what's happening in South Korea is radically being, every narrative is attempting to reduce the significance of what these women have jumped off. But there's a historical precedence for it. Like I said earlier, the historical precedence is that it's not the first time that this has happened. It's only the first time that this has happened in a mass way in the advent of the age of social media and the internet. So now we can all see it. We'd be like, damn, you feel me? But I wanted to take a minute before I get too off course, because there's a couple of other things I want to talk to you about. So let's see. Let me bring this up. Oh, shoot. Yeah, so I'm not going to bring the article up on the screen. Y'all will still see me, but I am going to read this. It's not even an article. It's the Wikipedia, and it's a very brief history successful sex strikes. The history of women using sex strikes to get what the hell they want. Okay? All right. So a sex boycott, or formerly known as lysistratic non-action, is a method of nonviolent resistance in which one or more persons refrain from or refuse sex with partners until policy or social demands are met. It is a form of temporary sexual abstinence. Sex strikes have been used to protest many issues, from war to gang violence to to policies. The effectiveness of sex strikes has been contested, but here's a brief history. The most famous example of a sex strike is in the arts is Greek playwright Aristophanes' work. Lysistrata was an anti-war comedy. The female characters in the play, led by the eponymous Lysistrata, withhold sex from their husbands as a part of their strategy to secure peace and end the Peloponnesian War. In Nigeria, among the Igbo people of Nigeria in pre-colonial times, the community of women periodically, this is a good one, periodically formed themselves into a council, a kind of women's trade union. This was headed by the Agba Ekwe, the favored one of the goddess Idamile and her earthly manifestation. Y'all heard? Listen. She carried her staff of authority and had the final word in public gatherings and assemblies. Now, this is pre-colonial Nigeria. Central among her tasks was to ensure men's good behavior, punishing males' attempts at harassment or abuse. What men most feared was the council's power of strike action. According to Ife Amadiume, an Igbo anthropologist, quote, "The strongest weapon the council had and used against the men was the right to order mass strikes and demonstrations by all the women. When ordered to strike, women refused to perform their expected duties and roles, including all domestic, sexual, and maternal services. They would leave the town en masse, carrying only suckling babies. If angry enough, they were known to attack any men they met," end quote. And there is even a site here saying that there are prehistorical examples of this type of woman strike action in the hunter-gathering period and other pre-colonial traditions. Colombia, this is in modern times. Colombia, in October of 1997, the chief of the military of Colombia, General Manuel Bonet, publicly called for a sex strike among the wives and girlfriends of the Colombian left-wing guerrillas, drug traffickers, and paramilitaries as a part of a strategy, along with diplomacy, to achieve a ceasefire. Also, the mayor of Bogota, Atanas Marcus, declared the capital a women-only zone for one night, suggesting men stay at home to reflect on their violence. The guerrillas ridiculed the initiatives, pointing at the fact that there were more than 2,000 women in their army. In the end, the ceasefire was achieved, but lasted only a short period of time. In September of 2006, dozens of wives and girlfriends of gang members from Pereira, Colombia, started a sex strike called La Huelga de las Piernas Cruzadas, which means the strike of the crossed legs, to curb gang violence, in response to 480 deaths due to gang violence in the Coffee region. According to the spokeswoman Jennifer Bear, the specific target of the strike was to force gang members to turn in their weapons in compliance with the law. According to them, many gang members were involved in violent crimes for status and sexual attractiveness, and the strike sent the message that refusing to turn in the guns was not sexy. In 2010, the city's murder rate, listen y'all, in 2010, The city's murder rate saw the steepest decline in Colombia, down by 26.5%. In June of 2011, women organized in the so-called cross-legged movement in the scheduled town of Baracas in southwestern Colombia started a sex strike to pressure the government to repair the road connecting Baracas and its neighboring towns and cities. They declared that if the men of the town were not going to demand action, they would refuse to have sex with them. The men of Baracas showed no support at the beginning of the campaign, but they soon joined in the protest campaign. After 112 days of strike in October of 2011, the Colombian government promised action on the road repairs, and construction ensued. In Kenya, in April of 2009, a group of Kenyan women organized a week-long sex strike aimed at politicians, encouraging the wives of the president and the prime minister to join in too, and offering to pay prostitutes for lost earnings if they joined. Whoo, child, I got goosebumps. Hold on. Let's see. We have to change the way we relate to men anyway. We are too enmeshed in forcing them to be protective providers, great friends, fathers, when they don't want to, just fake it to have us. Let me go on and finish reading this. Okay. In Liberia in 2003, Lema Bogwe and the women of the Liberian Mass Action for Peace organized nonviolent protests that included suggesting a sex strike, though this was not actually carried out. Their actions led to peace in Liberia after a 14-year civil war and the election of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the country's first female head of state. Lema Bogwe was awarded the 2011 Nobel Peace Prize for her nonviolent struggle for the safety of women and for women's rights to full participation in peace-building work. In Naples, Italy, in the build-up to New Year's Eve in 2008, hundreds of Neapolitan women pledged to make their husbands and lovers, quote, sleep on the sofa unless they took action to prevent fireworks from causing serious injuries. In the Philippines, during the summer of 2011, women in rural Mindanao imposed a several-week-long sex strike in an attempt to end fighting between their two villages. In South Sudan, in October of 2014, Priscilla Nanyan, a politician in South Sudan, coordinated a meeting of women peace activists in Juba, quote, to advance the cause of peace, healing, and reconciliation. Attendees issued a statement which called on women of South Sudan to deny their husbands conjugal rights until they ensured that peace returned to the land. In Togo, in 2012, inspired by the 2003 Liberian sex strike, the Togolese opposition coalition, Let's Save Togo, asked women to abstain from sex for a week as a protest against the president, Faye Gasingbe, whose family had been in power for more than 45 years. The strike aimed to, quote, motivate men who are not involved in the political movement to pursue its goals. Opposition leader Isabella Amanganvi views it as a possible weapon of the battle to achieve political change. Yes. Yeah. So this is just a very brief history. Let's see. If woman withholds, man will just get side chicks or girls. We have too many pick-me's for this movement. I don't necessarily know that. And I remember, of course, it was a fictitious adaptation, but I don't remember what year it was when Spike Lee did the movie Chirac. And that was the basis of the whole movie, was that gang violence was decimating the Black community in Chicago. And so it was the girlfriends of two of the main gangs heads that initiated this movement, this sex strike, to call on women to to withhold sex until the killing stopped, right? It's, you know, the movie is what it is. Like, it's full of contradictions, full of problems, but I really liked the whole idea behind this whole, you know, sex strike in order to get your demands met, right? And in it, the whole idea that this sister just mentioned about pick me's, yes, there's always going to be those in the community who are willing to sell out the crew. But in this movie, when they had those, because there was a few of them, the women, they listen. It wasn't like they just said, "Okay, everybody stop having sex." They waged a campaign, baby. Like, it was pretty. It's worth the movie is worth watching just for that, because and then I don't want to get too deep, but what happens even in those kinds of movements, yes, you may have in the beginning resistance from those who do not see things your way, you understand, but there's also this culture of shame, and there's this culture of not wanting to be left out that exists just as much as, you know, horizontal violence, and, you know, and those among the groups that are looking to betray the others. There's also this culture of shame and this culture of not wanting to be left out. You grow a movement in popularity where you may have been a sellout or, you know, I ain't with that in the beginning. Now the movement has grown and more people are like, what the fuck wrong with you? And now it's either shame or not wanting to be left out that drives you to the other direction. And this happened in this movie where women in the beginning were like, look, nah, you know what I'm saying? I ain't giving up sex with my man. Yeah, right. Were able to be won, whether that was through, you know, being able to be won politically or being forced to take the side of the group because they didn't want to be left out or they didn't want to be shamed. So those things happen. Politically and historically, we have seen those things happen. But this is not I would imagine everything starts out that way. I would imagine with Korean women being in general very traditional, very not buck the system type women in South Korea. I imagine they got a lot of ridicule and they got a lot of condemnation and they got a lot of threats and they got a lot of people laughing at them when they first started, and maybe there was 20 people or maybe there was 40 people, but now there are estimates, because don't nobody want to admit how many women have taken the oath. The estimates range from 400 to 50,000. That's a lot. It's enough for us to be talking about it over here. It's enough for us to be talking about it over here. So anyway, but that is the history. And see, the thing is even within the context of the 4B movement, nobody has really drawn out the history that exists, the very, very long history. This was just according to Wikipedia. I think there was another one I read. Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I think I think I shifted out of it. But there are hold on, just give me a second. There are so oh, let me see. Maybe this is it. This is because there was an article I read about the 10 most effective the 10 most effective boycotts that changed history. Hold on. Okay, I'm gonna just breeze through this really quick. Okay, major boycotts that changed history. I'm just gonna read through because this looks very short. Yeah, this is very short. And I'm gonna move that. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. Oh no, these are all kinds of boycotts. I don't want to talk about all of those. Sex boycotts for an end to violence. So this one goes back to the one led by Lema Gbogwe in Liberia. Yeah, it says that it was a sex strike that ended the civil war in Liberia. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, this is all kinds of boycotts. It isn't just, let's see, because there was one that was like, it was an article that I read. I thought I'd saved it. Ooh, what? Shit. Anyway, there was one that I read. It was about the top 10 most popular sex strikes in history, right? So yeah, but anyway, so that was one point I wanted to draw out, was the history of sex strikes, that this is not to stop, to not be seeing this particular movement as something new, or even the fact that they keep calling them radical feminists. Yeah, they're radical for South Korea because South Korean women ain't got no rights. It's radical for them. You understand? They're asking for the bare minimum. It's radical for them. So this whole narrative of calling them radical feminists as a way to discredit or reduce the significance of this movement, this commitment to their selves, to their own lives that they've made with one another. So be mindful of that, right? And then the other thing, it's kind of tied to what I was talking to before about the history of female infanticide in South Korea. Um, yeah. So another thing that we don't talk about, I've seen several documentaries on it, but we don't really talk about, because we never want to talk about the impact of war on human beings. We definitely do not want to acknowledge the long-term impact of war on women, of war on children. And so the history, there's another history that's very foul and insidious and gross and horrifying in South Korea, the history of comfort women. And even though the Japanese during World War II were tricking women and stealing women, and seducing women through false claims, and we gonna make you work in a factory and all of this shit, to have them end up in slave camps in Japan. And they got women from everywhere, from Lithuania, several other countries in Europe, but their primary target for women, and girls for that matter, was South Korea. There were estimates of up to 50,000 women that had been tricked, lured, or outright stolen from South Korea to work as comfort women to Japanese and American soldiers in Japan. And the history is so vicious. And there was a documentary I just saw not too long ago about the last living comfort woman, an elder South Korean woman who, supposedly in the beginning of the campaign, they were going to South Korean families and telling them, we want your daughter to come and work in these factories. And they would only take, quote, 18-year-olds and older. And then after a time, they started taking all the girls. They just started taking girls from these families, with promises of sending money back to the families for these girls to, quote, work in factories. It was like the families didn't even ask no questions. Like this woman was talking about, she was like, I was 14 years old when these men came to my house and took me, and I was gone for years. And it was like my parents just let them take me, right? And so anyway, this history, I want to say, okay, when I'm talking about the history of female infanticide, when I'm talking about the history of sexual violence against women and girls and children, um, in these places, right? And the places that it's most expressed right now, which is why I'm mentioning it, female infanticide and violence against women and girls and children in the places that I want to name right now, not exclusive to them, but right now for the context of this conversation, is South Korea, is Japan, China, and China. I'll say, and China. They are not the only places that have a history of female infanticide. They are not the only places in history that have a history of serious, massive amounts of violence, sexual violence against women and children. They are not. But these three in particular that I'm talking about, because again, we never have discussions about what we are looking at as a social phenomenon as it presents right now and the historical context or contributing factors that give rise to it the way that it looks right now. And so when I talk about Japan and China and South Korea, and I look at some of the discussions that are happening about the crisis of marriage, the crisis of birth and birth rate, and the crisis of the crisis of marriage, the crisis of birth rate, and some other things too that I will mention in a minute, right? But I'm watching y'all don't understand how much input I take in, and I'm always processing it, because that's what it means to think in a web, is to see the relationships that seemingly unrelated things have to one another, especially as something presents as a phenomenon that's identifiable and everybody puzzled about. I can see the way all of these things connect to this thing and contributed to its appearance in the world. So for example, in Japan, I don't remember the Japanese word for it. Let me see if I can Google it really quick. Hold on. What's the name? It's like in Japan, loneliness word. What's it called? There's this whole, oh yeah, there it is. Okay. Yes. So there's this word in Japan. Of course, I saw a whole documentary about it called kodoku. In Japan, there is this whole phenomenon called kodoku, right? And I will read what it says about it in general, just like at a top introduction. But they're calling these people Japan's lost generation. They lost generation. Okay. This shit is deep. Y'all got to see this documentary. This shit is deep. It was blowing my mind. What constitutes loneliness is a trickier question in Japan, where the overarching term kodoku has been used to describe both loneliness and solitude, essentially lumping them together. They're saying that it is contributing to an enormous rise in suicide in Japan. Kodoku, this culture now of people living lonely and isolated lives, right? There are parents talking about how their grown children won't leave the house, won't make friends, right? And they actually have caretakers that come to the house to, quote, entertain. Crazy. So kodoku. And the marriage rate is has drastically decreased. What did I read about Japan? What was it? Yes, it says that as of last year, the number of couples getting married had hit its all-time lowest level since the end of World War II, according to government estimates. It was the sixth straight year. Hold on. It was the sixth straight year that Japanese young people were opting out of marriage, and in turn, Japan experienced its sixth consecutive year of decrease in marriages. Record number of young people rejecting marriage in Japan, right? This is happening not only in Japan. I saw a whole nother documentary that actually mentions some of the, quote, historical contributing factors to the, quote, marriage crisis in China. The marriage crisis in China, they actually say, well, damn, what does 50 years of female infanticide do? It creates a horrible imbalance between the male and female population. That's what it did. The estimates, hold on, let me not misquote. The estimates Hmm. Child, listen. Oh my God. There are some estimates in China that say, let's see, hold on. Current situation. Let's see. Female infanticide, especially as a result of the one-child policy, has caused an imbalance of genders and available females of childbearing age, resulting in a decline in population and births. In 2017, there were under 13 births per 1,000 people. There were also 33 million more male men than women. Listen. In China in 2017, there were 33 million more men in the society than women. The racial imbalance between childbearing females and males because of female infanticide has also led to the rise of sex trafficking and bridal kidnapping of females, or importing brides from other countries. Let's see. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Yes, I was trying to see if I could get a so according to the Geneva Center for the Democratic Control of Armed Forces, the demographic shortfall of female babies who have died for gender-related issues is in the same range as the hold on. Let's see. Female infanticide. Where is that quote at? One child policy, blah, 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 blah. Because this thing is saying upwards of 191 million female babies. Hold on. This is from a just a Wikipedia article, but they're saying that there are estimations of up to 191 million female babies and children in China alone that died as a consequence of female infanticide, policy of female infanticide in China. Okay. So are y'all still with me on StreamYard? I don't see no comments, nothing. Y'all was pouring in the comments. for a second. Can y'all still see me? We have. Are y'all still here? Is anybody still here? Am I still on? Am I still live on StreamYard? Can y'all hear me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X? Anybody? A hands up, a shout out? Because it don't look like. Okay, LeJay's here. Okay. So anyway, so as long as one person's still here, I keep talking. So anyway, so I mentioned the female infanticide. I mentioned Kodoku, the lost generation that are literally dying out for isolation and loneliness in Japan, right? Female infanticide, and the fact that there's a quote crisis of marriage in China, a crisis of marriage and childbirth in China, right? And then what we've learned through this young man that I was telling you about earlier, the history of both female infanticide and government policy that was literally swinging the population of the birth rate back and forth based on whatever the economic bottom line and needs were of the country at the time, and then creating policies to help assist that, like giving women free abortions that they were using to exclusively have abortions if they found out they had female children, right? So and because the government, let me go back to that, because the government recognized that people were having abortions specifically for female children, the government was like, we can't have a whole bunch of male children because then that'll throw shit off too. So at one junction, when they realized they were creating another problem because males were naturally preferred in the society, they actually started doing commercials and campaigns to talk about the great and wonderful gift that is female children, to attempt to win here the women and families away from aborting female children. I'm telling y'all, this shit is deep, right? So I mentioned these three countries in particular because I want to add a dynamic that I know nobody else will to this discussion. So I talked about Kodoku. I just heard another kid today talking about how it blows. This is a Japanese kid talking about how it continues to blow his mind how so many Western countries still, idealize and kind of like idealize Japanese culture. Like, this culture is so great and it's so wonderful. This is a Japanese kid going off. He going the fuck in about, like, what's wrong with y'all? Do y'all not see that there are so many fucking weirdos in Japan? So many people in Japan, primarily men, who exploit young girls, there's a whole culture in this country built around exploiting girls. He's like, it's in the comic books, it's in all the art. Like, he's like, Japan is full of weirdos. You know what I'm saying? He's going off and talking about the different ways that this shit shows itself, right? And the problem is that we would again attempt to separate what we are witnessing in real time or in the present from a history that is still ever present in these societies. So when you talk about this enormous pay gap between male and female in South Korea, when you talk about South Korea having the worst working conditions and environments for women among 29 of the most advanced economies on earth, when you talk about 82% of all murders that happen in South Korea, the victims are women, then you go back to a very recent history and look at the aggressions against the bodies of women in these three Asian countries. The history of Japan that lasted a long time. They said the comfort women camps, they functioned for almost 12 years, holding hostage thousands, hundreds of thousands of women, but almost 50,000 exclusively South Korean women as unpaid sex slaves. They weren't even like prostitutes. They were slaves. One woman, this old woman that I saw the documentary about, who was 14 when these men came and took her from her house, talked about how the camps were literally like barns. And the women and girls were made to get up at 6 a.m. And at 6 a.m., there would be a line, literally a line of soldiers lined up outside of each of the stables, each one of the little cubbies that held the women and girls. And these males would be lined up all day. She said men would come in one after another from 6 a.m. to the sun went down every day. She was 14. This went on for 12 years. For 12 years. This is the history of the experience of women in South Korea. I have another book that I really thought about reading to you guys because this book is goddamn phenomenal. I have to debate about it. But this book is called The Women of Vietnam. This was gifted to me by an elder in the AAPRP, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, some years ago, maybe 10 years ago. The Women of Vietnam. It's out of print. You may be able to still get it somewhere. But baby, this book shook me. I'm going to read you a poem from this book. I might read this book. I might read this book to y'all. This book shook me. And the reason I mention it is because we don't think about even when we hear like the history of wars, it's just what they say it is. Women and children are collateral damage, baby. That's it. No faces, no spirits, no hearts, nothing worth remembering. We don't ever take the time to calculate the gravity of these wars and the crimes committed against women and children as justifiable action in war. We don't do that. We don't do that. And so I'm sitting here talking to you guys about the 4B movement. And yes, it's because these particular young women have had the gumption, have had the gall, have had the nerve, have had the confidence, have had the courage in a diabolical social system. And I ain't never been to South Korea, but I heard even women, Black women from America who go to quote study or who go to quote teach English as a second language in South Korea, and they like, I don't know how the fuck these women do it. I don't never feel safe. She's like, I don't know how these women I don't know how they do it. I don't know how these women continue to live under these circumstances. And so I'm talking to you about China, South Korea, and Japan because they have an unreconciled history of aggressions against women and children. They do. This article talking about estimates, we don't even know the true amounts, estimates of 191 million female babies aborted or killed under this campaign of the one-child policy in China, and you do not listen. And so now they're complaining and still trying to simplify. Well, you know, one of the contributing factors was during that really bad time when they really encouraged women or forced women to get rid of their female children. Now we have a population imbalance and males are not being able to get married. That's the conclusion. That's the conclusion that y'all coming to. Not that you have to fucking pay. Not that karma is real. Not that the spirits of these female babies, because that's just the babies that were killed. They were killed, these babies. But that don't even include the millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of female babies that ended up in the most unbelievable circumstances in China in these goddamn institutions called foster care systems. Baby, this shit is gruesome. Y'all can't believe what y'all say. I tell y'all that all the time. Y'all men talking about Buddhism and all these spiritual traditions. Y'all can't believe what y'all talking about. Y'all cannot believe it. There ain't no evidence that you believe it. Because the spirits of these humans want retribution. I believe that. I believe that. Y'all motherfuckers got debts to pay. Every man on earth. Y'all got debts to pay. Every government on earth. Y'all got debts to pay. How are you going to force or encourage an entire population for almost 50 years to murder all their female babies and then turn around and complain about, you don't have any men, we don't have any women to marry. We don't have any women to marry. And that's it. That's all you got to say. That's all you got to say. Stories about women who refused, women who lived like, you know, in the rural areas, the women that were still tied to the land, farmers and shit. The local government find out they pregnant, you feel me, and go and arrest the women and take them to jail long enough to force an abortion on them. This was the culture in China. This was the culture for 50 years. If you don't have an abortion, we're going to bulldoze your house to the ground. This was the culture. This was the culture. That yes, so whoever AW is said the foster care system is one of the biggest facilitators of human trafficking worldwide. Yeah, yes. These babies, child, listen, the documentaries on the Chinese foster care system and how the only babies you ever saw for 50 years in the foster care children of the foster care system in China was baby girls, and the biggest quote families, they were white Americans. They were white Americans. They were white Americans. They were white Americans. Some Chinese women don't want to marry because of the fear of the mother-in-law. Yes, all adoption everywhere. Yes. We're talking about the crisis of the birth rate. And there are scores of millions of children all over the planet suffering in goddamn the foster care system. And a great majority of them being exploited in child trafficking and shit, human trafficking. Fuck out of here. This discussion, the question of abortion, birth rate, reproductive rights has always only to do with one thing. Those that govern us seeing us as human commodities that can enrich or decrease wealth in their life. That's it. That's it. They are governing. They are steering the ship on this question. On and on and on, ongoing, whether it's we need to decrease the population for a little while, for about 10, 20 years, or we need to increase the population for a little while. And then all of the movies and all of the after school specials and all the media and all of the songs will contribute to this desired outcome that they have for either an increase in the population or a decrease in the population. You better know it. Better know it. Feel me? So anyway, I really wanted to talk about this whole idea of how to continue to weave into every discussion the idea of divine retribution, the idea of spiritual imposition, right? The idea that that there is an energy that demands retribution. You can't murder 191. They were talking about in certain areas of Japan, child, they would have to drag the rivers monthly for years. They would have to drag the rivers for the amount of babies, female babies that have been dumped in the rivers, so the governments wouldn't find out that these people had babies behind the government's back. Every month for years, dragging the rivers in fucking China for the bodies of dead babies, child. Anyway, this discussion is not the way, it's not as like I'm gonna mention, I said I wasn't going to, but Black men in this country who have been talking about the 4B movement, who've been saying we're gonna create our own movement, it's gonna be a 5B movement and all of this dumbass shit. I'm gonna need you to muzzle your shit. You hate it when people say, you hate it when Black women say, shut your fucking mouth, you're making the whole group look bad. But you continue to get on these goddamn instruments of our oppressor and regurgitate the dumbest, most asinine, ridiculously embarrassing shit. No study, no historical analysis. You just talk stupid. You just talk stupid. Stop talking. Stop talking. Stop talking. I have heard some of the most ignorant, dumb shit in response to this movement. It's like these men have not even paid attention. These women are asking for the same thing that they see that somehow we have as women in America. These women say, we want to have rights. We want to be free to walk about the cabin without the fear of loss of life. We want to be able to have children that even if we choose not to get married, we can adequately support, and a 31% wage gap ain't gonna do it. We want to be able to go to the public restroom without having to investigate the goddamn commode for fucking cameras because some slimy motherfucker wants to put my vagina on, display my vagina in what do they call it? Unconsensual pornography. Where it's such a problem that the government has to make laws against it. Motherfuckers spying on women in public places. And so you, black man, will get up on this shit, glamorizing in your twisted ass mind some traditional. The reason that it'll never work in the United States is because Korean women are traditional women who have traditional values and respect the sanctity of the family in marriage. Some Negro said that. Some Negro said that, child, on a video for everybody to see. He said that. It wouldn't work here because you black bitches, y'all don't believe in the traditional marriage. Y'all don't believe in traditional family. You talk too much. You're too mouthy. You feel me? It won't work. See, it may be working right there and they're involved, but they're involved for other reasons. Ugh. The grossness of it, child. Even regurgitating that shit is making me nauseous. Stop embarrassing the group. Stop embarrassing your mama. Stop embarrassing your mama. Stop embarrassing the women in your family with this dumb shit. Stop it. Read first. It's a basic skill that you have and you are entitled to in this country. It's the one thing you're entitled to is to read. So can you please do that? Can you stop making us look bad? Can you stop? Can you stop? And even what y'all claim y'all want as tradition, just be honest. Y'all lying. Y'all don't want traditional. What y'all want, because all traditional means, you know what? You do want traditional. But don't say traditional, just be honest. What you want is a slave. What you want is a servant. What you want is a servant. What you want is a slave, because your whole life you have envied the power and domination of white men. That's what you've envied. And that's what you want. When you say, I want a traditional woman, that's why you be going to third world countries with no money to your motherfucking name, because you know the power of your few little dollars. You understand? It's still going to get you somewhere in some third world country. So you go to third world countries to do what we criminalize white people for doing. Sexual tourism, the exploitation of the poverty in the third world, calling yourself, wanting a traditional woman with traditional values and know how to put their man on a pedestal. Bitch, you lying. You want a slave without getting the heat from being called a slave master. That's what you want. You want to be able to exploit human beings. You want to be able to exploit women. You want to be able to exploit girls. You want to be able to exploit teenagers without getting the same heat and the same smoke that we automatically give to the white world for these things that they've done to people in the third world. That's what you want. You want to be a slave master. And instead of just being honest and saying that, you got every excuse under the sun. And the target of all of your excuses is your black ass mama. It's your mama. Because when you're talking to me, you're talking to your mama. When you're talking to your black wife, your black girlfriend, your black baby mama, when you're calling her all type of terrible shit, you're talking to your mama. You're talking to your mama. Everything you say to some black woman, you say to your mama. And everybody in the world knows that. When they see black men condemning, blaspheming, terrorizing, saying all type of terrible shit about and to black women in the world, everybody in the world sees the same thing. It ain't just us. Oh, these niggas don't give a shit about black women. They don't give a damn about they people. They don't give a damn about their counterpart. Shit, these women is wide open. We can do what we want. They ain't got nobody that's gonna quote protect them. What y'all mean? I'm the man, so I'm supposed to protect, and provide. Provide what? What you providing? What have you provided? Have you built something that I'm not? Have you built a house somewhere I ain't aware of? Where have you provided? Have you built a car? Do you create wealth with your hands? Where you do that at? Protect from who? Protect from what? When's the last time you pulled a gun on a motherfucker who talked cross to your baby mama? When's the last time you busted a motherfucker in the jaw for talking slick out the mouth about the mother of your children? Protect. Protect from who? From what? Protect how? How you do that? Protect how? Provide what? What is it that you bring to the table? Protection and provision? What does that look like? Being present? That's what I had my ex-husband tell me. I was like, in your mind, what does it mean? What does it mean to be a good father? What does it? I asked him because we was already on the brink. I said, in your mind, what does it mean to be a good father, to be a good husband to a woman? What does that mean to you? It means to be present. You mean to occupy space and time? That's what you mean? It's to be present. Child, y'all need to stop talking. Y'all need to stop talking. Because the reason that women and children are laid bare, the reason that women and children make up, what did this statistic say? 82% of all murders committed in South Korea, 82% of all murders that happen in South Korea are women. The victims are women. The victims are women and children, primarily women. The victims are women. 82% of all murders in the country, they married. They got babies. They got uncles, daddies. Who protecting? Protect them. Protection. What? Provision. Provide what? 82% of the population are being murdered are women. Who is murdering them? Is it women that's murdering them? Is it women that's murdering them? Y'all want slaves. And these women have said, no more. God damn it. No more. No more. No more. Marriage, I done told you. You can be mad about it. Marriage is an institution that was born out of the Renaissance. It is an institution that began to guarantee property, to guarantee the passing of property through bloodline of the male. That's what it did. It had to become romantic because men began to realize that brute force was not enough to keep a woman from being faithful, and they needed to guarantee their bloodline. They needed to guarantee the transition of their wealth. And once they realized that chastity belts and putting bitches up in towers and shit, why do you think all these fairy tales, all the fairy tales coming out of Europe is about some poor motherfucker up in the goddamn in a high tower surrounded by dragons and shit, so she couldn't get free? Rapunzel, the only way she could see her boo is to let her hair down because they got her locked up in the tower. Every other story is about a bitch being locked up in the tower. Why they had to lock all these women up in the towers? What was the purpose of locking all these women up in the towers? Is to guarantee that she remained his property that could guarantee his male heir so that his wealth could live on through his lineage. That's the only reason. And once they realized these stories that we see all the time and don't put no context on, once they realized that chastity belts and high towers surrounded by fire wasn't going to keep a bitch in heat from getting some from her true love, then these bitches would start throwing their hair down the window, their tresses down the window, so their true love could climb up their hair and get up in the tower so she could get some before her husband got home. They had to start switching up the game. They had to start singing sonnets and writing poetry and striking at the heart of women to keep them faithful. Oh, we ain't got to use brute force to keep a bitch faithful. All we got to do, we ain't got to put her in a chastity belt and shit like that. All we got to do is sing her love songs and tell her how beautiful she is and how I have dreamt about her my whole life. And then you have this whole new genre of art that emerges in Europe to keep women faithful so that men could guarantee their property while they gone for long periods of time, stealing somebody else's loot. You feel me? So, now these countries in Asia are in crisis. South Korea is spreading an idea that's got these motherfuckers in a way. These people have said, please, women, just have some babies. For every baby you commit to have, we will give you 75,000 US dollars. And these women have dug their heels in and said, keep your money. We made our demands clear. Keep your money. $75 for every baby you have. Come on. Take a boo. Have a baby. It was like, not today. not the motherfucking day. And you think 15,000 missing kids at your kindergartens this year is a problem? Wait to see what we got in store next. You understand? Wait till you see what we got in store next. The last thing that I'm gonna say, because we way over time. I didn't even realize I was talking this long. The last thing I'm gonna say, and then I'm gonna read this poem from this book about the women of Vietnam, because it's gangster. Okay. And I'm gonna say, let me say this. Let me say two more things. The reason that I love this book so much was because it taught me a history that I was not well aware of about Vietnam, about the indigenous people of Vietnam, and how their earlier traditions and creation stories were of an egalitarian society, of a male and female creator deities who came together to create the first people of Vietnam. And it wasn't until these foreign entities started to invade and colonize Vietnam that it became, like the invasion of Confucius China. The Chinese colonized Vietnam for 2,000 years under the system of Confucianism, which was heavily patriarchal. And in Confucius China, in fact, they said that if a woman only gave birth to girls and she died, it was said that she died with no heirs. It was as if she didn't have no children. If she didn't have a male child, according to Chinese belief, it was as if she had never had a child at all. Meanwhile, the female population of China and subsequently Vietnam under Chinese rule, they were the cornerstone of the entire economy. Females. That they were nameless and they were faceless mules that built the economy, but had no value in the economy. This book really goes through the difference colonizing, what Vietnam became or it looked like as a consequence of the major colonizing countries throughout their history. China being the longest, 2,000 years during the Confucius period. Subsequently, I think Japan, and then France, and then the United States. And then this book was written, I think, 2 years after the United States finally ran the hell up out of Vietnam with their tails tucked between their legs. And the book also talks about the long, long history. Just as long as Vietnam has been colonized by one entity or another, the long, long, long radical rebellious history of Vietnamese women. The whole long laundry list of victorious battles won and waged by Vietnamese women. This book is radical. It's great, right? So anyway, I wanted to say that because one, I be in conflict. I've told y'all this before. I be in conflict often because I love the system of medicine that I have chosen to channel my energy through. I love Chinese medicine. I love the history of Chinese medicine. And I love the system of medicine. And I be at odds because there is a lot of beauty and magic and unbroken science that has happened in a nation like China that has been able to relatively protect its culture from outside invaders. That's what Chinese medicine represents, right? Hold on. The book that I was talking about is The Women of Vietnam. The Women of Vietnam, somebody asked. So I'll be at odds because there is a really beautiful and rich, thriving, glorious history in China. But it will never have me like we see a lot of socialists do. It will never have me ignore the gruesome, vicious, violent, genocidal history that corresponds in China. China has a vicious ass history. Japan has a wicked, diabolical, listen, some of the crimes committed by the Japanese during World War II, man, diabolical. Man, I interviewed this woman when I was doing that show years ago that I was telling y'all about called Colonialism is Bad for Your Health. I interviewed this Chinese national child about the conspiracy theories of using of harvesting the organs and skin and eyes of Chinese people in the Chinese prisons who are specifically like anti-Chinese government. This interview blew my whole goddamn mind, y'all. Blew my whole mind. Remember, I don't know if y'all remember, there was this exhibit that was happening, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, maybe longer ago than that. I was still in medical school, like 2008, 2000. It was called the Bodies Exhibit. Anybody remember that? The Bodies Exhibit, where they had actual human beings that they'd use this kind of like polymer fucking preservative that they would shoot into the venous system of these dead people to highlight, you know, they would have them like playing soccer, doing things, but like have them on full display so you could see all the muscles and you could see all the veins. They had babies where you could see the babies in utero of a woman who had died. What, you remember that? I was in medical school. So-called cadavers. I was in medical school. As a matter of fact, I think I was in my second year of medical school, my undergraduate. And our assignment was to go, because the Bodies Exhibit was in Tampa for a little while, and our assignment was to go on a field trip to the Bodies Exhibit. I said, not today. I won't be doing it. You need to give me another assignment. And I'm in medical school now, so the professor is like, that's an odd response. Like, why not? I said, I am politically diametrically 1000% opposed. You don't have me up there doing no shit like that. But it's for science. I was like, there's a lot of diabolical shit on earth that's been done under the name of science, under the banner of science. You won't have me paying no money to participate in no bullshit like that. Right? We go, like, I went the fuck in. And she seemed intrigued. She was like, okay, well, I respect that. So to replace, because this was like our, like a, like you have to do, like a big term thing. This was going to be the term thing. She said, well, since you're not going to do this, do a term paper on why you are opposed to the Bodies Exhibit. I sure did. That's how I ended up interviewing the woman on my radio station, on my radio show, Colonialism is Bad for Your Health. I'm doing research for my research paper on why I refuse to go to the Bodies Exhibit. And one of the names that came up, I can't remember the woman's name, but was the lone voice, because it was so popular, the Bodies Exhibit, was the lone voice at that time speaking out against the Bodies Exhibit, because what the line was that these were people who were who had like on what you call it, like when you go to get your driver's license and they ask you do you want to be an organ donor, and they put that on your driver's license, you feel me? She said these people had, quote, donated their bodies to science, and so these were all people who donated themselves, right? Or Jane and John Does that these hospitals, couldn't make contact with families and shit. And so they become these, just the idea of putting somebody's body on display, flayed the fuck open, playing soccer, playing basketball, supposedly, so you can see the kinetic, the what is it called? The kinesiology, what is it? The kinesiology, like how the body moves, how the muscles look when they're in flexion and when they're in, like, the whole shit blew my mind even before I talked to the damn Chinese national about where the bodies actually came from. She was the lone voice in the world because the Bodies Exhibit was so popular at the time. It was traveling all over the country. It was traveling all over the world. And people needed to feel really good about why they were so fascinated by going and seeing the bodies of human beings in the most humiliating displays. Imagine your grandmama being on display in a museum with her body split the fuck open and all her goddamn her reproductive organs on display, quote, for the sake of science. Y'all lying. And we were so comfortable with it because none of the faces looked like us. These were all Asian people. These were all Chinese people on display in the bodies exhibit. And because it wasn't us, we wasn't offended. Because it wasn't us, well, it is science. We would just go. That shit was so fucking outlandish and disgraceful. And the fact that nobody ever even, it didn't take me long. It didn't take me long to find the opposition to the bodies exhibit. So nobody in all the hundreds of millions of people that went and watched that shit, that paid money to go see that shit, not one person said, you know what, let me Google real quick and see if there's some bullshit. Let me Google real quick and see if there's any controversy around this shit. It took me 5 minutes to find this woman and her whole presentation she'd been making all over the place trying to get the bodies exhibit banned. She said, these are not John and Jane Does. These are not people who volunteered their bodies to science. These are inmates who were opposed to the government. These were people who were imprisoned, whose organs, a lot of them, their organs were harvested to sell on the black. She went to fucking, yes, she did. Why did I get on that? Oh, because of this history in China. This history in China. I get it, Samara. Yeah, Chinese people wouldn't be bothered to see black bodies on display either. That's not the point. That's not the point at all. For me, seeing black, brown, and red people in this country pile into these museums to see these people's bodies on display, and it never occurred to them one fucking moment. If this was one of my people now, if this was a brown person, if this was a native person, if this was some family member, would I be okay with this? And if the answer is no, move the fuck on. That's the point. It's not about, because I'm sitting here telling you that that Chinese people are fucked up just like everybody else is fucked up. Chinese rulers in particular, Chinese people, everybody got their shit. Even if we got our shit. At what point, in what juncture do we live with some modicum of integrity? The fact that people were completely dissociated from how fucked up that exhibit was because they could not relate to the faces of the bodies that had been used, that was what was problematic for me. That was what was problematic for me. White people would have burnt that bitch to the motherfucking ground if it had been nothing but blonde hair, blue-eyed people. To me, it wasn't no different than what was happening in the antebellum South or in Nazi Germany when these motherfuckers was using our skin for lampshades and using our hair for fucking pillowcases and shit. It wasn't no different from me. And so I wrote the goddamn term paper and she was like, this shit is the most crazy thing I've ever heard. It's not about how people view us. I know how people view me. I live in this bitch. I know how people view me. Black, fat, nappy hair, tattoos, counterculture, whatever. Loud, boisterous. That will never have me betray my own goddamn integrity when I see the suffering of others. And even before I even knew what this woman had to say about this exhibit, intuitively, my spirit was like, something is suspect. This is not right. And I'm a scientist. I've taken cadaver classes. I've been in medical school. I've taken cadaver classes. But honey, that was different. And my spirit knew it right away. And I'll tell you, I say my spirit knew it right away. I was an atheist at the time. So it wasn't even like I was on some spiritual shit at the time. I was an atheist. But something in me was like, nah, that ain't for you. Google this shit. Somebody done said something about it contrary to the popular narrative. Somebody done said something contrary to this popular narrative. Google the shit. Find out for yourself. If you wrong, cool, concede. But lo and behold, I wasn't wrong. Where the bodies exhibit at now? When the last time you heard about it? Where is that? Why it ain't a continuing show? Just like, what is it? What's the guy name? The Picasso, like Picasso. You can always go and see Picasso or the works of Frida Kahlo or whatever. They tour all the time, year round, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Why? This was a massive success. Where's that? Why it don't tour no more? Why you ain't heard about it in the last 10 years? Where is that? Where the bodies exhibit at? Somebody Google it. Is it still functional? I ain't heard nothing about it since I left medical school. And I graduated medical school 10 years ago. Oh, it's in LA? Let's go see. The bodies exhibit is closed, boo. It's gone. That's what it say right there. Right there. The first thing I said is closed. And then the next thing says origins of exhibited cadavers. This is NPR. Origins of exhibited cadavers questioned. The exhibition relies on documentation from a country with a problematic human rights record. Yep. Controversy about the origins of the corpses, on and on and on and on and on. All I asked was what happened to the bodies exhibit. And everything that come up is about the controversy around the origins of the cadavers. But that's what it means for me to pay attention to my intuition. I was an atheist, a full-on hardcore radical atheist. And no, you didn't miss the poem. Hardcore atheist. And even then, honey, my spirit was like, not you, motherfucker, not anybody, let everybody else go. I was the only one that didn't go. But not you. Not you. You ain't going. Write the damn term paper. You feel me? And the reason I'm mentioning all of this is because, one, I've been in conflict for some years, knowing this dualistic history, this beautiful, wonderful, deep, rich, old, ancient history of China, and its dualistically problematic, diabolical, vicious, wicked ass history. You feel me? Now, that, along with the other things that we were talking about, the history of South Korea, the history of Japan, and the history of China, and this also this thing that we always do in terms of like romanticize. I mentioned earlier why socialists don't want to be condemning China or condemning North or South Korea or any of that, because they so invested in their socialism that they can't make an honest critique of how patriarchy presents itself in these so-called socialist societies. That shit is problematic. Because say what you want about the Chinese Communist Party, about Mao Zedong, even if it wasn't his intention, which I'm certain that it was. And I used to be a huge fan of Mao. I read every single speech by Mao Zedong. Every single one. I can tell you the ones that I love the most. Mao on physical education. Mao on medicine. Mao on the importance of women in the revolutionary process. I've read them all. Every single speech he ever made. I was huge. I was a socialist. I was a huge fan. But that's because the way we learn socialism is to ignore the adjacent crimes and harmful and negative impacts that these socialist revolutions had on regular everyday people. And can't no socialist deny the impact of the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution killed 10 million motherfucking people. Chinese people under the Cultural Revolution of the Chinese Communist Party. That happened. So what, you just gonna ignore that for the sake of saving face for your ideology? Child, let me tell you. So this thing happening in South Korea, all power to the women of South Korea, goddamn it. Everything they say they want for themselves, give the women they shit. Because everything they asking for, they earned 1,000 times over. They earned 1,000 times over being fucking slaves in marriages, not earning a wage because they a full-time housewife. They working for fucking... We just read the book, The Parable of the Sower, the other day. Didn't we just read that book, The Parable of the Sower? And she said in this dystopian future that the only jobs that you could get was jobs where you were literally an indentured servant, where all you was doing was working for room and board. Working for room and board. Couldn't get paid no money, but you could work for room and board. Generating wealth while all you doing is existing. Isn't that what women have been doing since the advent of marriage? Isn't that what women have been? We glorify housewife life, bitch. You ain't getting paid. You ain't getting paid. You working for room and board and to take care to take care of a man's children. Because there was another article that said every time a woman has a child, her wages suffer. Her wages decrease. Every time a man with children in the same kind of job has a child, for every child, his wage increases. You understand? Women have been robbed for a very long time. We've been wage slaves. We ain't even been wage slaves. We ain't even getting paid wages. We getting paid for room. We are working for room and board. We working for room and board. You feel me? In a marriage. If we quote stay-at-home moms. If you're a stay-at-home mom, baby, you got a job, according to Forbes, that your minimum income as a stay-at-home mom should be $159,000 a year. Your minimum income should be $159,000 a year. You feel me? You ain't getting paid that. You working for room and board, bitch. And in exchange for room and board, he gets some children he can gloat over and show off to his other male friends about what a great dad he is. And he get free vagina whenever he want it. Child. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I really could talk more. I'll probably do a separate thing on this whole idea of kadoku in Japan is fascinating, because to me, as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is retribution. As soon as I saw this documentary on kadoku in Japan, I didn't see it as a political issue. I said, this is divine justice, baby. This is divine retribution. This is divine retribution, because the primary people suffering under this so-called kadoku are men. The primary people that are suffering are men. I said, this is what divine intervention look like, y'all. This is what divine justice look like. So I'm probably gonna go back and watch that documentary. I saw that a long time ago. The one on kadoku, and also the one on the comfort women. That was really something I feel like we need to watch. It was good. It was well done. And yeah, these are things that we should know. So anyway, I'll probably come back and do like a whole specific thing on, like, what are the ways spiritual intervention or divine retribution shows up in society? Like, what are the points in human society and occurrences that we can point to and say, yep, that was divine intervention right there. That was divine justice right there. That wasn't just some quote political social phenomenon. No, this was divine retribution. And I believe this kadoku thing is one of them. Anyway, I'm close by reading this poem from this book that I love so much. The Women of Vietnam. Okay, so I'm going to read the little prefacing statement. I'm going to read the prefacing paragraph, okay, that gives rise to this poem. The title of this section is called "The North and South Are Kith and Kin." The North and South are kith and kin. This is the slogan painted on the arc at the south end of the Ben Hai River at the 17th parallel, the temporary demarcation line between North and South Vietnam. When I was in the North in the fall of 1974, it seemed like half the people present at most meetings were Southerners. They had gone north in 1954 when the Viet Minh regrouped. They fulfilled their obligations under the Geneva Accords, and they expected to return home within 2 years when reunification was promised. Instead, many of them had not seen their families in 20 years. One of them was Vo Tai Tay, a national leader of the Vietnam Women's Union in the North, who had once taught literature in Hue. She explained to others, I turned suffering into listen. She said, I turned suffering into hatred to fight for the reunification of our family. I am determined to sacrifice all my personal life to the service of the revolution. Our whole people are inspired to fight. struggle for reunification to be able to live under the same roof. Members of all our families are in both North and South. This poem, written by a woman in the North long before the total liberation of the South, anticipated how her family would be reunified and future generations protected. The name of the poem she wrote is called Winter Monsoon. I lie here listening to the winter monsoon wail in the night, and I think of you, little daughter dear. Have you gone to sleep, or lie you there awake? Who is looking after you, my child? Who picks you up? Who picks you up? Let's see, who picks up your blanket when you drop it in your sleep? Your plump fingers exposed to the cold? How I crave to hug you, my daughter, and kiss your lips, and put my cheek against yours, and caress your shoulders. Oh, my little daughter, without you, how the bed looks forlorn. Can there be in this world more grieved mothers than we? In your letter, you said, I dreamt of you, Mama. No, my child, it won't help to dream. Let us be back together by destroying our enemy. Woo! 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 Listen. Woo! Yo. She said, no, my child, it will not help us to dream. Let us be back together by destroying our enemy. Come on. Woo, this book. She said, I turned my suffering into rage to destroy my enemy. God damn. This book is gangster as hell. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read this one to y'all one of these days. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I hope that you gleaned something of value from the topic of today's discussion, which was on the 4B movement, in South Korea. If you do not know what I am talking about, get hip to the game. Go on TikTok, go on YouTube, type in hashtag 4B movement or 4B movement. You'll see a gang of videos from all points of view about this phenomena unfolding in South Korea. But I wanted to take the opportunity to approach the discussion from a different way, from a different angle, because thus far I haven't heard these angles. Thus far I have not heard this discussion unfolding in a way that always keeps women and their demands in the center. Extinction is not the fucking issue. Human beings will not go extinct as long as women remain. And good for us. We don't ever have to have sex with another man if we do not want to. You feel me? They don't have to have sex with another man if they don't want to, and can still opt to have children if they change their mind. They said they ain't having children, but it was within the context of no heterosexual relationships. They said we ain't having sex with no men, we ain't having children with no men, we ain't dating no men, and we ain't marrying no men. Don't mean they can't opt if they want to have a baby and go right on down there to their local sperm bank and go catch themselves a baby. Well, I was telling y'all the last time I was on here that y'all need to go to Amazon and look up the movie. It's an episode of The Outer Limits, and the name of the episode is called Lithia. And this was the topic of one of the discussions that happened in this episode, where this dude had been in cryogenic freeze for 40 something years. And when he, quote, is unfrozen, he awakes in a world where there are no more men. He's the only man on earth, as far as he knows, because of these factors. Men had waged this one great war and decimated the entire planet and killed, like they said, it's interesting because now this was in the 1990s that Lithia was produced, but he got out of cryo freeze and he's asking the women, like, what the fuck is going on? They were like, well, what do you remember? He's like, we were on the precipice of war when they put several of us in cryo freeze, and we were only supposed to be in freeze for 2 years. and it ended up being 42 years. And so they're explaining to him, well, the war happened. And he was like, oh my God, who won? She's like, nobody won. Well, how many were lost? 7 billion people lost. 90% of the population lost in this war. And then people had to survive the nuclear fallout. And then after the nuclear fallout, there was a mysterious virus that swept the land. And the last remaining males were the only ones impacted by this virus. So he's freaking out. He's like, oh my God, so there are no men. She was like, yeah, there's no men. And he was like, so if there have been no men for 40 years, how are their babies here? Like, look at all these little kids. Like, how are their babies here? And she said, fortunately, the technology was sound enough that we still got enough sperm out this joint for generations. We can be up in here for generations. He was like, well, you still get pregnant. I mean, it's still sperm. She was like, the virus is still in the environment. And so babies that are born male don't survive past the first couple of weeks to months. And he's like, this is wow. So no babies born. And y'all done saved up enough sperm for us to reproduce for generations and generations. Okay? Stop talking about fucking extinction of the species. Bitch, there are 8 billion people on the planet. The species ain't going nowhere, no time to fuck soon. As a matter of fact, if you have me till it, Mother Earth, in her attempt to correct some of this bullshit, is probably why we're seeing a lot of the phenomena that we're experiencing. We think that our thoughts are our own in isolation. We think the ways that this shit shows up just happens spontaneously. I don't believe that. I believe that Mother Earth is working. I believe she's working, is what I believe. And I believe we don't understand, but we can identify a myriad of ways that might be indicative of her at work to restore harmony, to execute divine justice and retribution, and all of the things. So stop talking about that. Stop talking about, oh my God, the babies. Y'all don't care about babies. Y'all don't care about babies. Y'all don't care about babies' lives. Y'all don't. Any man talking that bullshit, whether it's about why women ain't having no babies or, why women want abortions or any of that, you ain't interested in babies at all. Don't nothing in the real world. Don't nothing in the real world that we experiencing right now. There's nothing indicative that you give a damn about babies, about children. Y'all don't give a fuck about babies and children. Y'all don't. So stop talking about that bullshit. Stop talking about, women. The only thing that you like, why are you even here? Like what? Who are you without family? Who are you without a baby? Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. You are internalizing for the first time in a long time. You are internalizing your own, what's it called? Internalizing your own mortality. That's what men are bitching and crying about. What they bitching and crying about, what they kicking and screaming about, what they throwing temper tantrums about. When women start talking about how they're going to be childless, when women start talking about how they ain't going to have no babies, when women start talking about they ain't getting married, when women start talking about 4 Bs, no booty, no booty, no children, no dating, no marriage. They are internalizing their own mortality. That's what they doing. They say everything but the thing. They are internalizing their own mortality. Because all the statistics all around the world say the same thing. Women's lives are made worse by marriage, while men's lives are made better. This is the damn definition of parasitism. This is the damn very real definition of parasitism. Your life is made better at my motherfucking expense. In every place on earth, the statistics are the same. Women's life expectancy is shortened by marriage, while men's life expectancy is increased by marriage. It is the actual real live definition of parasitic relationship, of parasitism. And y'all asses have internalized that. Y'all got y'all panties in a bunch because y'all like, damn, if women don't want to get married anymore, if our slick talking ain't winning a bitch to her own enslavement no more, what the fuck we gonna do? How we gonna survive without somebody taking care of us, without somebody cooking for me? I'm crystal clear about why y'all crying, about why y'all got big crocodile tears, about why y'all raging and foaming at the motherfucking mouth, about why y'all buying passports with your $20 motherfucking dollars. You don't own a home or a pot to piss in, talking about trying to go get yourself a traditional wife from some third world country. I get it. Y'all in crisis because y'all will attempt to do everything but learn how to be a man, which means being a man does not mean dominating and conquering. Being a man means being totally self-sufficient so that you could be a decent and functional human being within the context and partnership of another functional adult human being. Y'all want slaves. And the slaves that said, not the motherfucking day. Not today. Women have said, we are officially shutting down the baby making factory. I'm childless. That's the narrative. That's the line. I won't never have a baby. That's the line. And instead of saying, damn, this is a really, as colonized men, as oppressed men, for you to not see women staging a contest against patriarchy as something that will benefit you and make it possible for you to make a break against the system that oppresses you, against the system that has been exploiting your goddamn labor and your life force all these years. But y'all stay married to patriarchy, even at your own expense. Because women making a break with this shit is going to destabilize the whole thing. This whole motherfucker about to crash to the ground, baby. Best believe. And colonized men have a motherfucking responsibility to stand on the right side of the question for a change. Y'all have been wooed by white power. Y'all have been wooed by the church. Y'all have been wooed by the mosque. Y'all have been wooed by Judaism, by the goddamn synagogue, to be the enthusiastic participators in the exploitation of your counterpart, of your sisters, of your mothers, of your would-be wives, of your would-be friends. Y'all have been wooed to your own destruction and have enthusiastically, charismatically participated. And so women who have gave you opportunity after opportunity, have given you hundreds of years of the benefit of the doubt, have given you years and years and years of free labor under the guise of, boo, I love you. Now these young women, I love Gen Z. I love millennials. I love whatever the generation after them come. I say right the fuck on. Come on in the room, young girls. Kick the doors on this bitch. Dismantle this whole motherfucking shit. Dismantle this whole motherfucking shit. And if it means closing down shop to every wire-bearing chromosome motherfucker on earth, y'all, I'm following y'all lead. Because y'all got the audacity, the bodaciousness, and the courage we ain't never had. We ain't never had that. That's why these motherfuckers out here mad, because they know if Gen Z or millennials are doing it, they really about that life. Like, bitch, we ain't going to work. What do they call it? What do they call it? The Great Resignation. I don't give a fuck how you try to shame us about how we just scared of a hard day's work. No, we just don't want to do it. We see it didn't win you nothing, mama, daddy, your old asses. Y'all ain't win shit from a hard day's work. We don't want to do it. We ain't doing it. So fuck it. We ain't going to work. I'll create my money looking cute on the camera. See what I'm saying? I say right the fuck on to Gen Z and millennials. Yes. Big them up. Yes. Kick the doors in on this bitch. Yes. 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 Right the fuck on. They ain't suffered none of the conditioning. They ain't have to deconstruct none of the conditioning that we had to. All that Christian shit, all that going to church when your spirit was raging against it. None of that bullshit. They ain't got none of that shit. So they like, we up in here. Y'all don't scare us with none of this shit. None of these narratives, none of this bullshit. And even the fact that these motherfuckers have been perpetually medicating these babies and it still ain't working. They in a crisis. diagnosing these babies with a plethora of bullshit ass psychological diagnoses to justify pumping them full of goddamn antipsychotics and antidepressants and all, and these babies is still wreaking havoc on the economy, still wreaking havoc on social mores, still wreaking havoc on every definition and narrative imposed on them. They're like, we bucking all this shit. we bucking all this bullshit. We ain't going to fucking work. So get somebody else, get some old ass motherfucker to do it. We ain't doing it. We ain't paying y'all motherfuckers no taxes. Like I love these young people. I don't care what none of y'all say. I fuck with them hard. I like them. I say as rugged as you want to be, do that. Do that. Do that. Yes. All victory to the women of South Korea. God damn it. I support every demand they make and every fucking method they use to get their demands met. Yes. Victory to the women of South Korea, and may they victory spread like wildfire across the whole goddamn planet. Because as soon as the fucking smoke clears from the fire, they motherfucking said, bitch, the rest of us can raise the fuck up out the ashes and reseed the whole planet. Yeah, come on in the room. Come on in the room, child. They represent the energy of the ancient mothers, of the goddamn Ajay, of Kali and Sekhmet, and goddamn Oya and Pele. All the destructive motherfuckers. They like, we gotta wreck this whole motherfucking thing before some shit of use can reemerge. So come on in the room, South Korea. We here. We got you. Tell us what you need. You need us to do a fundraiser? Let's do a fundraiser for the women of South Korea, y'all. Something. Let's do a party for the women of South Korea, y'all. Something. I am invigorated by the courage of these women. I am ecstatic about what it is they setting the fuck off. And the evidence that it's working is the fact that media is working overtime now to quiet it. Media is working overtime right now to reduce its significance, to diminish its significance. They doing something right, because they got these motherfuckers running and trying to bribe them with $75,000 per baby. And they like, hell no, that ain't what we said we wanted. We ain't say we wanted $75,000. We said we want to be equal citizens in this motherfucking country that we helped create. We want to benefit from the wealth that we helped generate. We ain't asked for $75,000. We asked to be full ass equal citizens in the society, able to benefit from everything that we produce, including human life. And if you ain't talking about that, you ain't talking about shit we interested in. Come on in the room, young women. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Somebody has to be at the tip of the spear. So yes to the South Korean women. Come on in the motherfucking room, South Korea. Come on in the room. Come on. Somebody out here invigorated. Somebody out here excited about what the hell y'all done set off. Y'all done set in motion that's got these men running in crisis, baby. Got them running in crisis. And as long as patriarchy remains, I can guarantee you the men will never come to the right conclusion. So some other things are going to end up happening in South Korea, because these women going to get the idea. These men will never come to the right conclusion. And so after some time, when they say, okay, y'all still want to act like y'all don't hear what the fuck we talking about? We talking about the starting point. We talking about the bare minimum. Equal pay, safety, sanity, access to adequate health care. That's all we talking about, the bare minimum right now. This is the starting point. We talking about, and y'all still act like y'all can't hear? That's all right. We got to stay in power. Honey, 5 years later, they in a crisis about why there's 15,000 missing kindergartners and what this is going to mean for the future of their goddamn population. This 3-4 years of missing humans that should have been born based on how they manipulate the population. This is how many humans should have been born if y'all bitches would have been acting right. You feel me? And so 4 years of them disappearing would-be citizens that were supposed to be contributing citizens to the population. They're like, oh, these bitches really about that life. There's 15,000 missing kindergartners this year. What the fuck are we gonna do? Now imagine if this shit go on for another year to 5. Baby, this is an exciting occurrence that we need to be paying attention to. Yes, it is. And I'll tell you, we need to be paying attention more to what's happening in Japan too, and in China, and in India. That's another one we don't talk about much. Yo, so anyway, Japan is saying they don't think there'll be a country in 50 years. Well, that's what divine fucking retribution looks like. I don't think that's going to be the case, honestly, because what these statistics do, Tajali, when you say Japan is saying they don't think there'll be a country in 50 years, what these statistics tend to do, and the way that they are developed is always again to negate the significance of women as equal contributors to a society. It's not all of Japan that's suffering. These statistics are about the experience of males in society, because males still see themselves at the center. Well, what are women going to do if they're not having sex with us? I mean, what are women going to do if they're not marrying us? I mean, what are women going to do if they're not making babies with us? So I don't think that's the case. I think we'll see a different kind of Japan in 50 years. But Japan, again, ain't no place on earth going no fucking where as long as women remain. As long as females remain, humans will remain. These narratives are narratives to get us women caught up in this bullshit and ass discussion where we perpetually place men in the center. And I'm not saying I want to see all the men on earth disappear. But if tomorrow the mother decided, like in this movie, Lithia, that all y'all Y-bearing chromosome motherfuckers gotta go, if she decide that tomorrow, guess what? The human race will remain as long as females remain. That movie, what was that movie? The Children of Men, right? That diabolical shit. The children of men, this period in the near future where babies are no longer born, where there are no babies born. And there's no explanation about why all of a sudden women stop having babies. No explanation. Just mysteriously, women stop having babies. And when the movie comes on, the youngest person on earth, who was the last child born, dies. He's 18 years old, dies on his 18th birthday. Remember that movie? And then it was this miraculous thing because this girl, this black girl who was a prostitute, is pregnant. So all these white people, chat, all these white people, almost in cult-like fashion, gather around her to make sure that she gets to this promised land so she can have this mysterious baby, because ain't nobody had no babies in 18 years. Isn't that something? Even as this black female prostitute is supposed to be the center of the story, the narrative is that something has happened in the world where, it's like, it's this, to me, it's this insidious narrative that still keeps males in the center. I mean, even her savior is a white guy. What's his name? Clive something, whatever his name is. The lone white guy that has the save, this beacon of the future of humanity, because humans have been in despair and the world has descended into chaos because women are no longer having babies. And it never occurs to nobody in a position of power that maybe it's the violence. Maybe it is an evolutionary response to a world plagued by violence that have dried up these women's ovaries to say, oh no, Or like the study I told you that was done in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the 1970s, at the peak of conflict, where all the male babies were dying. We're not living past a few weeks. That the birth rate in the Democratic Republic of Congo in that period, in the late 70s, was for every male born, there were 13 females born. I'm talking about the immediate birth rate. I'm not even talking about infant mortality. I'm not talking about, none of that. Just the male to female birth ratio, which globally is what? For every one male born, there's 1.1 females born. So the global birth ratio at birth is almost equal. And then depending upon where you go in the world, it will shift or change depending upon the environmental circumstances or the social or political circumstances, famine, war, whatever. In Congo, it was the gap was the most wide on Earth at the time. For every one male born, there were 13 females born. So the scientists are like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, what does this mean? What are we looking at? And they determined that the ovaries, that the eggs, that the female ovum had developed a protective shield, a protective coat, that when they were looking under the microscope, even when they tried to artificially inseminate Y-bearing sperm, this protective coat was rejecting Y-bearing sperm. That's evolution. That's evolution. That's evolution. Motherfuckers talking about getting superpowers and entering the fifth dimension. That's real evolution right there. We live in a combat region. The women are under constant assault from Y-bearing chromosome human beings. So Mother Earth, in her relationship to this female body that is directly attached to her, says, okay, what we're going to do is we just going to make sure that the future generations, you know what I'm saying, of male Y-bearing chromosome human beings is diminished to maybe get ahead of this war aggression that seems to be initiated by Y-bearing chromosome motherfuckers. So the only thing that we can do as females is put a protective coat around the ovum so that the damn Y-bearing chromosome sperm either get rejected, or if they actually penetrate, they are killed. They are killed. You feel me? Stop placing men in the center of anything, especially anything biological. Females govern this domain. As long as female human beings remain, the human race will remain. So get that shit out your head. Motherfuckers trying to guilt you into having babies. Fuck that. Motherfuckers trying to guilt you into servitude. Damn that. Damn that. We have to control the narrative. We have to control the narrative. I don't know what incorrect means, but I know what the fuck I'm talking about. You can go somewhere else with that bullshit. As long as human females remain, the human race will remain. All of the necessary ingredients that are required for the production of a human being, both of those polar bodies exist in the ovum. They exist in the egg. You understand? What about women over 35? Where you hear that at? Women over 35 can't have children. The hell? The hell? Where you heard that at? My homegirl was 52 years old when she had her last child. Where you heard that at? Y'all gotta keep certain shit out y'all head. I promise. I'm a scientist. I'm not talking conjecture. I'm talking 10 years of medical school. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Western medicine and Eastern and alternative medicine. I know what I'm talking about. Some of that shit y'all gonna have to get out y'all head. This idea that the sperm is a seed. The sperm is not a seed. The ovum is the seed. The sperm is required for genetic diversity. The sperm is what guarantees genetic diversity. That's all. That's the only purpose that it serves. Everywhere in the animal kingdom, wherever a Y chromosome emerges in that kingdom, it is for a very specific function that Y chromosome exists. For humans, it's kind of random for us because we're higher, more complex beings. But for example, in certain lizards or even in certain fish, the female will only have male offspring once a year for a very specialized purpose. So for example, there's a fish, is a deep sea fish, right? And that deep sea fish will only have male offspring once a season so that the eggs that are created during the winter can survive the winter. So that Y chromosome from that one male offspring that she produces once a year is to make the shell casings on the eggs resistant to the cold so that they can survive birth in the winter. Lizards do the same thing. Bees do the same thing. Bees do the same thing. Y chromosome species throughout the entire animal kingdom function, one, to ensure genetic diversity across the species. And two, because they contribute a very specialized function within the preservation of the species. That's it. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say scientifically and historically across sciences. You cannot say that females, quote, the mitochondrial Eve, that the entire human population descended from a Black sub-Saharan African woman, and then turn around and reject the idea that women have at some point in their history been parthenogenetic, spontaneous, asexual reproducers. Why y'all got a problem with that? Why y'all think I'm being hostile towards men when I tell y'all science? It ain't about being hostile to men. It is about science. If the human female species remains, the human race will remain. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And you can have an attitude about it. This dumbass motherfucker on my IG is like trying me. I told y'all I don't argue with men. I don't fight with men. I don't debate with men. But he being real funny right now. He said, yet men still rule this world and women are too weak to fight and conquer anything. Well, have you tell it. But I know this. I know that these very meek, mild-mannered, traditional South Korean women are kicking y'all motherfucking ass right now. They got them men running in crisis. So you can talk that bullshit if you want to. You ain't getting a rise out of me, baby. I'm talking science here. I'm talking history here. I'm talking facts here. You can be about it or not about it. That's on you. That's your prerogative. You understand? But at the end of the day, if you are a male and you can hear me say what I'm saying and not hear inherently that we are trying to teach you how to preserve your space in humanity. I don't know any woman, even hardcore feminists, that have said, I hate men and wish all the men on earth would disappear. I would not blame them if they did, but I have not heard that from women. Not even hardcore feminists. Never. Not once. Heard, fuck all men. I want them to die and disappear off the face of the planet. Fuck men for now and forever. I've never heard a woman say that. Never heard a feminist say that. Never heard a lesbian say that. Never. Not once. But y'all stay poking at the dragon. Y'all stay with that dumb shit. Like this dumb shit you on my motherfucking goddamn page with. Right? And all that dumb shit. Boy, bye. Boy, bye. You understand? It's that kind of dumb shit. And I'm saying, man, I'm not the enemy. I'm not the enemy. So while y'all motherfuckers is talking about, you need a provider and a protector, y'all missed the boat with that shit. Y'all missed the boat with that. Long ago, you missed the boat with that shit. This nigga talking about women can't fight. Who is talking about that? Who is talking about that? Where that came from? Because you always see power synonymous with aggression and domination and subjugation and fucking violence. You wonder why women don't fucking trust you. It's because that's always your conclusion. That's always your motherfucking go-to. It's how you can subdue some bitch. It's how you can overcome some woman. It's how you can fucking chop a woman down. That's your go-to. It's so ignorant and exhausting. And so when women say, well, fuck it, y'all can't learn. You understand? You cannot hear when people speak. You cannot contribute in a way that is based on your own benefit, And so what you always do is what you always do. You always go to brute, fucking ignorant force, brutality, subjugation, enslavement, chop downedness. I don't know what y'all gonna do. This going off you doing. Oh gosh, what an ignorant piece of shit, yo. Bless him. Well, the white men conquered Africa. None of the black women is God stuff, anything, blah, blah, blah. Oh, tragic. Chat, please. This is boring now. Yeah, boring. Anyway, so typically I don't entertain that kind of shit. But today I was in a mood. So yeah, I entertained it for a half a second, but that shit bores me. It don't sway me. It just bores me. It don't offend me. It just bores me. Y'all are boring. Y'all don't have a pot to piss in or a leg to stand up on no more. And y'all are experiencing crisis. Because instead of just taking the right side of the question, instead of just doing the right thing, instead of just taking the right position, y'all will just commit suicide. Y'all will just dig your own grave deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Deeper and deeper and deeper. You understand? She said, thank you for being an example. You know what I'm saying? That's your knee-jerk response. It's vitriol. Oh, well, just take care of your health. You fat anyway. And all that. Boy, poor ting. Poor thing. That's the only thing you got left. And now you're in a crisis because you see it doesn't work. Yeah, you see it. You're in a crisis because you see that it no longer works. It no longer sways and wins the kind of response that you need. You need the weakness. You need the tears. This dude was in his feelings. I had to block his ass because you taking up space that you ain't got no right to. But you see the weakness. Oh, but y'all bitches can't fight. You know, like the white man took Africa. When women out there fighting the white man to prevent them from conquering Africa. This what this dumbass motherfucker was on my shit saying. Are you for real? Child, bye. Just every time you open your mouth, stupid just comes out. Just don't talk. If you're not certain that what you're gonna say is gonna come off intelligent, just don't open your mouth. If it's so obvious when someone is lonely that the only interaction they can have with a woman is to irritate a YouTube creator. They ain't irritating me, child. I just gave him an opportunity to prove my point. That's all. That's all I did was gave him a little bit of time to prove my point. But when he's talking about bitches can't fight, when he's talking about bitches can't wage struggle, listen, that's all right. Let them little meek, young, wonderful, so-called traditional South Korean keep dismantling that bitch. Keep tearing that motherfucker down brick by brick with every baby they deny that motherfucking country. That's what they're doing. In real time, they are literally toppling the state. That's what they're doing. They are toppling the state. And if you see it as something else, you aren't a political scientist. You understand? You aren't a political historian. I just read y'all all these cases throughout history where women just refusing sex in the society won them exactly what they wanted. And they didn't even have to do it long. One struggle said all the women did was hold out for a week. Where was it? It was Sierra Leone. They said all the women did was hold out for a week. And it ended a 14-year goddamn 14-year war. All the women in the country said ain't nobody getting no pussy for a week. Y'all gonna come together and resolve this shit? Or ain't nobody getting no pussy for a week? And this movement ended a 14-year war. So he can come on here with that dumb shit if he want to. Listen, we talking facts. How the women of Colombia made their husbands and their lovers do without. It was only for a little while. 6 weeks or something. Did I say 6 weeks? Put them on pussy restriction for 6 weeks. And Colombia saw a 29.5 reduction, the greatest it had ever seen, a 29.5% reduction in its homicide rate. Huh? They did that. Women did that. They didn't have to pick up a single gun, them women. They didn't have to pick up a single gun, a single weapon. They said, "Oh, y'all can't understand clear language. Like y'all killing everybody. Y'all can kill 480 people in our community in a half a second. Oh, y'all can't hear nothing else. Don't nobody get no ass until our demands are met." Over and over. I just read y'all 10 different instances. The Peloponnesian War ended by women restricting sex from men. Greek women did that. They was like, "Oh, y'all can't respond to nothing else." Okay, these the only chips we can play because y'all can't hear shit else. All right, cool. Even in Italy, where I'm told a girlfriend of mine lives in Italy. She said nobody knows how much women right now today, how much women in Italy suffer. The misogyny is more pronounced than any place I've ever seen. She said women in Italy are suffering. The crimes against women in Italy are staggering, and don't nobody hear about it because the arm of the state keeps our shit from the world view. She said, but we suffering out here in Italy. She lived there now. And here they say that the women was just like, look, every year y'all do these goddamn fireworks and people get hurt. Kids get hurt. People get hurt. We need you men to take our position. That's what they said. We need y'all men to get on our side. And the men was like, we ain't got shit to do with that. And the women's like, oh, you can't rally with us to get some fucking some what do you call them? Some ordinances or whatever around how these fireworks happen so our people ain't injured every year. We ain't taking babies to the hospital and shit. That's cool. Fine. Don't take our side. You ain't getting no ass. Within a week, all the men got on their side to campaign against the goddamn fireworks. Over and over and over and over and over again. Even in pre-colonial, I told y'all, even in pre-colonial practice of Ifa, over and over and over again, y'all motherfuckers don't listen. Women talk and talk and talk. Women talk and talk and talk. Women beg and beg and plead. Y'all don't listen. Y'all don't listen. Y'all don't listen. And it ain't until we got to be all the way the fuck up out the house. Like, fuck you, I'm out. We got to be out. Or we got to say, all right, well, until you do what the fuck I say, until you comply to my needs or what it is I'm fighting for, you ain't getting none. And we can go to blows about it if it have to be, but you ain't getting none. But you ain't getting none. And it's been successful over and over and over and over again. And the only reason motherfuckers got their panties in a wad right now is because the shit is on full display, where it had been hidden historically. You understand? These great victorious struggles against patriarchy. You understand? And how do the women have to fight you? The women have to fight you that way. Because when there is a 29.5% reduction in the murder rate in Colombia, don't y'all know y'all benefit from that? It's 480 men and women that have been dying in the cartels, primarily men, just like here in America. The majority of men, Black men that are killed in America are killed by other Black men in inner city conflict. You understand? So everything that we asking for only benefits you, but you stay resistant because your penis always getting away. You stay resistant because your penis always getting away. You can't never come to no good conclusions about nothing in the world because your penis always getting away. Bless you. And all we doing is rallying for you because you are kids. Some woman gave birth to you and I relate to her. That's why I love you. I relate to her suffering to make sure that you got here. That's why I love you. I love you as a man, even if you're my lover, because there is this inherent connection that I have with she who gave birth to you. And y'all stay getting in the way. Your penis stay getting in the way of making good logical decisions, of taking the right position, of standing on the right side of the question. Perpetually gets in the way. All the time gets in the way. So this motherfucker who came on my page talking about, women can't fight, so that's why men will always win. That's why men. The level of dumb, the level of stupid, man. Goddamn. Who is talking about that? But that's y'all only go-to is malignancy. You understand? Child, it's like trying to reason with a corpse. It's like trying to win a position. It's trying to win integrity from a corpse. That's why I don't spend no time on that shit. I don't spend no time arguing with y'all. Anyway, I'm gonna let y'all go. It's like encroaching on 3 hours. I did not intend to be on here this long, but it is the question of the day. Get hip to the game. Hashtag 4B movement. Look it up. Watch the videos, and now that you have some context that no one else has brought into the discussion, see where you can see the kind of like ways that I feel like the state is trying to shift the narrative in this 4B movement, and win support away from it. You feel me? Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I love you all. I love you all. I will probably see y'all tomorrow. What's tomorrow? I'll probably do a little live tomorrow. I have sitar practices, but maybe I'll spend an hour doing a live tomorrow. And in the meantime, I'll see you then. Have a blessed night, great day, good sleep. This is Cassandra Floyd, also known as Daughter of the Fates, founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. Peace.